Thank you. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, I just put pictures together. There's no words on any of these slides, so I'm just going to talk through it. And this is the town of Gold Hill. It's a very small mountain town about 30 minutes west of Boulder. It's an old mining town, so it's filled with highly flammable historic buildings that are all made of raw wood and things that go up in flame very easily. And it's completely surrounded by dense forests. So we've been working in the town of Gold Hill for about 3 years, really just starting with a lot of community engagement. So we do a lot of walks through the forest, a lot of community meetings, a lot of meetings with landowners. And this really started as an effort to put together larger scale forestry projects. So we finally have that happening in Gold Hill. So we have about 145 acres of funded forestry work. So we're just getting started on that. I should say that the 4 Mile Fire in 2010 came up to the very southern boundary of the town of Gold Hill. So it burned some structures nearby, but it did not burn the town down. And then in the last 3 years, they've had these smaller fires really on every side of Gold Hill. They're at the top of the ridge. So they are very, very aware of their risk, and they feel very vulnerable. So the community is really only about 200 to 250 people. So it's very small. And we've really been using this community as a way to kind of test our programs and our approach to doing this type of community wildfire work, and then working on scaling it up in other communities. So this is just some background context for the Opportunity Fund work that we're doing. So we have started on the forestry work. This is probably about 25 acres of the 145 that we will do. The main town is kind of in the upper left of your screen, but you can see how aggressive the forestry work is that we're doing. We're really trying to create a fuel break on that north side of town, and then the wildfire burned up to the south side of town. So we're kind of just taking bits and pieces out. Here's another picture so you can just see how aggressive this type of work is. And this is really different than the style of mitigation, of wildfire mitigation that has happened in this area over the past decades. So there's a lot of emotions and community engagement that is needed to get this type of work happening on the ground. And I should say that this is all on private land, but there is U.S. Forest Service work that has happened nearby as well. So we're really trying to tie in some of that. And then we had this big realization that we could legitimately do this type of very intensive forestry work, and the entire town could burn down very easily anyway, which, is not really... we really just realized there needs to be a more holistic approach to the work that we're doing, and we cannot just focus on forestry. And so we're working with the town. We're starting with zone 1 work around structures. That's a way that we have found where we can really help mobilize individual landowners throughout the entire community and really leverage funding and labor to help people get this work done, because so many people want to get this work done, but it is prohibitive either because of cost, but mostly because of labor, honestly, because it's just difficult for a single landowner to do rock work like this around their house. And so we're using the Opportunity Fund, and we've used grant funds in the past to hire our local youth corps, which is Teamworks, or the Teens Inc. Youth Corps outside of Nederland. They are a conservation corps that's around in the summer. And so we hire them to do all the work, and then the landowners are purchasing the rock. So we basically provide the logistical and administrative management. We provide funds to hire the youth corps, and then the landowners purchase the materials. And this is a great way to kind of leverage and have everybody participate in ways to get this done. And so these are just some photos of that work happening. We also use the youth corps to do a lot of weed whacking this year. The grasses are so high everywhere, and there's so many people doing this work themselves, but there are a lot of elderly people in Gold Hill who have lived there for decades, where really getting this work done is hard for them. And then the last part of the way we are using the opportunity funds is we are trying this experimental work where we are inoculating wood chips in a small portion of the forestry project that we're doing. So this is wood that has been chipped, and they are spreading it around to try and get it to between 1 inch and 4 inches, which is maybe kind of the range that people doing wildfire mitigation would chip on their own properties or have their contractors chip at. And so the Coalition for the Upper South Platte has been experimenting with this type of mushroom and inoculation with mycelium and wood chips for many years now. And we are just trying to kind of build off of their work and working with a local company here in Boulder where we're spraying the inoculant on wood chips, and then we'll be measuring to see if we can, if that inoculant, that mycelium can increase the rate of degradation of those chips while improving soil health. So the Youth Corps helped us spread those chips around, which was kind of boring, but very helpful. So, and then the inoculant was put on the week following this. So it's all there now, and we'll be monitoring that project. And that is it.
So the basic idea here is, you know, as we all know, we want to engage with our youth corps. There's money available for that, but also my background as an educator, I love sort of the vision of getting young people on site and them being able to learn from these projects. I think Cusp would comment that when we do book these groups, the outcomes are not always in line with what we need to stay competitive or move our grants forward. And so the idea was born this winter. Well, why can't we lean in and offer some support if it's forest health information they need or better faller instruction? Where can Cusp come in as educators here so that moving forward, these projects are kind of meeting our specs? And another fun layer of that is we are in Lake George. There's no one to hire. We don't offer housing, and we're having a lot of trouble retaining our own field crew staff. So I would just love to see us be able to dependably pull these big cores out for projects, have them camp and send them home, because there's not a workforce for us to complete some of the stuff that's in line with our goals or our grants. So his first photo gives you a sense of where the collaboration took place. It was in town of Green Mountain Falls. You know, I've heard Green Mountain Falls compared to like the next paradise of our region here. Incredibly steep slopes, incredibly dense forest, diseased forest. I chose this picture first because you can kind of see some of the aspects we're working with, including, you know, rough footing, a lot of potential for hangups, a lot of potential for widowmakers and some of the standing dead. One thing we learned through the collaboration is Mile High is actually not currently able to take down standing dead. That was not something we were aware of. So it's like a really cool place to, with more instruction, be able to get them to a place that is something they're more comfortable doing. Again, showing sort of the area we're working. What we've done is given 2 Sawyers, 2 Mile High for the week. And we've taken 2 of their crew leads. The idea of focusing on crew leads is those crew leads can take on tougher, more complex situations. They've been cutting longer. This isn't their first summer cutting typically. And then they can disseminate that information if they're retained from year to year, or they can use that to advise programs or meetings specs as they work alongside foresters, even outside Cusp. So here we've got a crew lead doing some directional felling. I also have our staff forester, Adrian Knight, as well as Jeff Tinkin, who's a faller too. And we learned through the collaboration, actually used to be a Mile High Youth Corps faller instructor like back in the day. So all came full circle. I didn't even plan that. And so they're sort of advising some direct faller skills, but also advising what trees do we take, what don't we? If we can't take over here, how do we resolve that? So there's some forester knowledge coming into play in addition to just how do we deal with more complex felling situations. This shows the group again, 2 of the Mile High Corps leads. We're intentionally hanging up trees here because that's a big thing they dealt with in Green Mountain Falls. and talking about all the things you want to think about when getting trees safely to the ground, and also what areas to even bother working in if there's high potential for hangups. This one shows a nice complicated spring pole situation. That diagonal tree is spring pulled under tension, but it also has additional debris that's falling on it. So I was actually on site for this one, and I was like, yeah, I don't even know where to start. Like, you know, it's like order of operations, almost like some PEMDAS moment of, you know, what do you do first? You don't smack yourself in the face. So it was pretty interesting for me to even get to sit in on some of these trainings. I promise I didn't put this together for my own benefit, but it was like pretty cool, some of the stuff they were finding in these really dense areas. And then enthusiastic as always, looking at a stump shot. They're kind of thinking about what went well with cuts, what didn't go well. I think the collaboration overall was seen as needed, but after we got on site, the need only intensified in terms of just little gaps in knowledge that it's so cool. We were all able to lean in together and make these leads really confident when they talk about felling, when they talk about more complex cutting situations. So I was only able to be on site 2 days, but I felt like really good being able to see the things that were accomplished, even when I was there, and I had to miss a lot of it to save money. So a lot of time spent with the forester. That was one of the big things. We don't just want, you know, I think with the capacity limits of Mile High, it's a lot of take the disease trees or kind of space them irregularly when you take them. But we kind of went way more in depth in terms of making choices around tree selection that's going to authentically alter fire behavior and disease spread. A lot of direct faller instruction. I budgeted 2 instructors for 2 students, because I know, because I'm going through some of this falling training, you really need direct instruction. There's just so much that comes up, so many personal habits that you need to have identified and called out as you're working. And then sort of an unintentional thing is a lot of program manager collaboration. So one of the leads was a program manager for Mile High. So when I was out there, we were talking about our shared struggles. We were making recommendations to their programs that we've seen work in the past. And then additionally, we were understanding more about the ways that their program is limited, just based on current things that are going on in the economy, or basic things around who's booking their projects and not, like where are they getting limited with their teaching and what more could they use in terms of support, and whether we're those supports or we're making recommendations for other groups to support them. It was great to just like kind of hear the Mile High Youth Corps story and have them hear ours, and from there kind of be working together to strengthen both sides' programs. We're hoping, you know, in the future to continue some education, but also maybe to start booking Mile High again for some of our projects now that we even know these leads directly, and just seeing if we can get the collaboration working again, where they're able to complete projects, including thinking about, okay, are we mostly using them at times for drag and slash, and we come in and do more complicated trees, or like what are the different ways they can be used to kind of maybe increase the amount of acreage that can be produced, or what kind of sites are most appropriate. I think thinking on our end that, you know, Green Mountain Falls is a pretty tough environment, maybe for a new felling crew, thinking about where we're actually booking them. I'm also engaged with their EAC, which is their employer, oh God. Well, it's basically like giving advice on like hiring, building resumes, except for now, I guess AI, you can just have them do that. But, you know, just trying to give some professional skills into how do we retain these jobs? How do we attract young people into our position? So I think CUSP really benefits from being dialed into a younger workforce's needs, and they benefit from, you know, just some instructions about like how to interview or how to show up in a cover letter to companies or different things like that. So I'm kind of engaged on that level, which is really interesting. Green Mountain Falls benefited because the sites that CUSP works and Mile High works, for both work in the area, have some more continuity and have some shared planning. And we're also all kind of leaning in for how do we communicate to the public in a united way, even though there's kind of 3 organizations present in the area. So some good meetings came out of it to kind of create unity between, you know, what is fire mitigation? What are we all saying about it in a united way, rather than some disjointedness that the public was feeling. So that was pretty cool. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have a presentation to show you. My project is currently 3/4 of the way through. I am focusing on defensible space I am using the Opportunity Fund to empower my ambassador program to promote a slash day for our district. Actually, we're having two, so to promote and to participate. We had our first day this past Saturday. Really great turnout. We have 4 main communities within the Genessee district. The larger community has an open space manager, and they provide slash pickup yearly. And the other 3 major communities, one has that a service done weekly, so they really didn't need one, but the other 2 do not have any open space managers or anybody to help with their defensible space. And they're just not as involved. And so I was hoping to promote that and to get them more involved. So this past Saturday, we again, we had our first slash day. We had 49 drop-offs, which is pretty amazing. Our large community had, I think, 1/3 of the amount of slash as we did last year. Last year was huge. I think it was my first time actually having a slash drop off, but it was a really great turnout. I was incredibly surprised. The one community that doesn't really participate as much did. And then our next slash day will be the week after next. And so some of the hurdles I'm encountering as I've gone along with this with my ambassadors is just getting them to track their time. So that's been quite interesting. And so I have to work with them on that again. You know, I had volunteers that were not ambassadors. I had volunteers from the fire department because I'm with the fire department, and that was really great. I did a much better job this year of actually gathering data as community members would come through. You know, we would ask the community they were from. We asked how much time they had actually invested in collecting the slash that they brought with them. And we also just took general notes if they had anything, you know, they wanted to share with us. And, you know, everybody was overwhelmingly grateful that we did this and gave them the opportunity to do it. I made a lot of great partners along the way that I have not used in the past. We have a large church in our community with a very large parking lot, and it's not always used. And so I asked them if I could put the spot there this year as opposed to the fire station to make it equitable for all the communities, just an easier spot for everyone to get to, which actually made it so much simpler to get cars in and out. And the amount, everyone is just shocked at how much slash is down there. So that was really great. You know, I really worked on advocating for the program with Jefferson County and actually got a place to take the slash and have it taken care of in a more environmentally friendly way. So I thought that was, you know, a win for us. And then another thing is through that, I advocated to actually get a discount from the roll-offs that we're using because, you know, they charge us to take it to a landfill, whereas where they're going to take it and dump it, they're not being charged. And we're not being charged from Jefferson County for the use of their space. So I thought that was a huge win for us as well. You know, everyone, again, had nothing but kind things. I don't think I had as many firefighters help this year as I did last year. But again, I really wanted the ambassadors to drive this. And I think it was a good turnout. I think, you know, we had about 8 on that particular day. I had a number of ambassadors help promote the activity. So I'm looking forward to the next day or the next slash date. And I'm hoping we get just as much. So if anybody has any questions or wants to know anything about logistics, I've really worked a lot through this. We had to get lawyers involved with the Jefferson County thing and the fire department. I had to come up with a suppression plan. I've never had to do that before. So, you know, it was a lot of learning all the way around. So